In this lesson, I will tell you more about why both data and metrics are so important in any organization. Very few organizations are into HR metrics these days. You often see that somebody asks for information from the HR reporting function. In most HR departments, there's someone who is familiar with HRS software, and this person generates the occasional report. Occasionally, you will see organizations produce a periodic report. This can be caused by an executive who periodically asks for some data that he or she wants to know. The executive will ask, for example, what the turnover of the organization is, or the absenteeism, or another HR outcome. Such reports are an evolutionary result of interest in what HR is doing. However, not everyone is doing this. These periodic reports are quite rare, and they are often a collection of data and metrics that are not necessarily strategic. Other organizations you will find are working on dashboards. Dashboards are becoming increasingly popular, and a lot of software vendors are trying to offer these. There is one thing that all of these activities have in common, and it is that they show HR data and metrics. Regardless of where your organization is, you should ask yourself one central question. Why should HR bother with the reporting of metrics and data? There are at least a couple of things that come to mind. One of them is that in the context of HR is the only area that is really the source of HR information. If you consider a typical organization out there, you have information systems for sales, for marketing, for finances, and accounting. And the organization lives or dies on the basis of what this information is telling them. If an organization fails to sell its products, it can close shop. As an executive, you will want to know what the financial information is telling you. It's the lifeblood of your organization. Although the access to financial and sales information is a common practice for many, many years in most organizations, I don't have the sense that organizations necessarily recognize that there is no difference with HR. HR's role is to provide the organization with a picture of what is going on with the human resources of the employees of their organization. HR knows the context and can provide information and interpretation on data and metrics. HR should own it. The follow-up question is then, why should companies use metrics and data? The purpose of all metrics, whether we realize it or not, is to measure performance in the organization. When I use the word performance in the HR context, people immediately think of performance appraisal. My use of the word is much broader than that. People analytics is data-driven HR decision-making. So we need to ask the question, what with respect to HR has the potential to be data-driven? In other words, anytime you are measuring something in HR, you are thinking about performance. When you think about performance, it can be thought of as being able to be split up into three categories. First is the category of employee and the interaction or interactivity with the organization itself. For most people, when they are thinking about HR metrics, this is the first major category to measure performance on. When you are measuring in this category, it's the interaction of the employee with the organization. For instance, if we were to consider something like employee turnover, that's an interaction. People are leaving the organization. There's activity that's going on there. So we'll be paying attention to how many people are leaving and where they're leaving from, and sometimes why they're leaving. Another example might be absenteeism. That's another form of employee performance and measuring performance in an organization. Because when people aren't there working on the job, it's costing the organization. It's causing them to require more inputs to provide the outputs that they need. These are measurements of organizational performance. If you are losing your people or having a hard time getting new recruits, or are having absenteeism problems, this is a measure of organizational performance. The second major category of performance in HR is with respect to HR operations itself. This refers to how the department is conducting itself as an HR shop. What is the HR effectiveness and efficiency? For example, how quickly do we respond to requests for service? How long does it take for us to answer these requests? How many of these requests are we unable to resolve? What do our customers think of our service? This is another way of thinking about performance that is HR related and that can be measured. Traditionally, these metrics have been given a lot of attention as HR has focused a lot on making its own function efficient to reduce cost. With analytics, we move beyond HR efficiency and focus on added value. This is where the third category comes in. The third category is not how well we did in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. It focuses on how we are doing what we are doing and how can we do it better. This is where people analytics can make a contribution by embedding analytics into processes so that we can use algorithms to achieve better outcomes based on what our data is telling us of what we do. The goal here is to improve business outcomes by improving what we do in HR. In summary, when we talk about performance, we go beyond the traditional performance appraisal. The definition and measurement of performance is much wider than we thought traditionally, and this will most likely only increase further. Of all these areas, the first category, interactional metrics, the actual monitoring of HR services, or the embedding of analytics into how we do what we do, most organizations will start with the first of those. This is a good starting point, but the second and third category are also important and should not be forgotten. The second category will become more important with increasing automation of HR processes and functions. This enables HR to push efficiency to a new level, and the metrics in this category help to keep track of progress and can help to assess the return on investment of HR software like self-service packages. In addition, such self-service packages enable the employee to do more and changes the role of HR to a support unit for employees when they have questions. The efficiency of HR as a support unit can again be measured. The third category is far less proven and requires established metrics. These are necessary before we can embed analytics into how HR is functioning. This category is most subject to change in the future as people understand the potential of analytics to re-engineer and reinvent what they are doing in HR. The second and third categories are rare to find in most organizations. Despite the fact that we already know about data and metrics and have known about them for over 100 years, adoption of metrics in most organizations is still slow. This should change as we are already seeing an increase in the recognition of the importance of metrics now that the field of HR analytics is taking off. The traditional HR metrics are a good starting point.